All right. I am out again because my son is recovering from his ACL surgery. On Thursday, you should have covered the reflexive property and vertical angles with me. So on your notes page, you should have all of this top part filled out. But today on Friday, right before spring break, this is exciting, we're going to talk about alternate interior angles. So alternate interior angles are formed when you have parallel lines and they're cut by a transversal. We covered these in our last unit. So if that sounds familiar to you, that is why. The one thing I'm going to recommend, so let's look here at problem A. We are specifically doing a triangle congruence unit. So can you see that a lot of these parallel lines, these ones with the arrows, so remember this, and this signifies that AB is parallel to CD. So in order for you to connect this to your prior knowledge, you've got to picture those going on forever in either direction. They are parallel. And this one here, this BC, is our transversal. So in order for them to be alternate interior, now I don't know how familiar you guys are with cars, and I wish you could see what my hand is doing, but the alternator, if you lift up the hood of your car or you go under the car, I'm not exactly sure where it is. The alternator goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that's the same idea here. So we're going to be on alternate or opposite sides of the transversal. And this word interior is referring to our parallel lines. Can you picture what's inside of those two parallel lines? Like I'm looking at everything in here is inside these parallel lines. Sorry, my coat is rubbing against the microphone. Let me take it off. Okay, so here are my four options: angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4. Those are all inside. Those are interior angles. So which ones are opposite? On top, on bottom. Now, I know there's another pair, but when you go back to these original lines that they gave us, it was more like a letter Z. Those other angles, those obtuse ones, do not exist in this original picture. Okay, how do we name them? Well, there's a couple different ways. These ones, it's kind of easy because I look at angle B, and there's only one angle there. So I could call it angle B, and I'm referring to this acute angle right here. And it is alternate interior with angle C. And since it's the only angle at that vertex, I could just call it the vertex. If you want to get super exciting, you can name it by 3 letters. So starting at A, going to B, and ending at C. And then over here, I'm starting at D, C, B. So when I correct these, though, I'm looking to make sure your vertex is the one in the middle. So for these particular notes, we're going to stick with this top method when we can. We can't always use that method, but when we can, we're just going to call it by the single letter. And if it's not possible, here's a good example of how you use the 3 letters. The middle letter must be the you said vertex. Okay, let's look at number, oh, they're not numbered. Let's look at the second one. I would like for you to specifically focus on your parallel lines. So will you take your pencil and emphasize this arrow? And if you want to make the parallel lines a little bit darker, go ahead and do that. In fact, if you want to pause the video and go pick 2 crayons out of the crayon box, this might be a great practice for finding, like draw one color for your parallel lines and a different color for your transversal. Okay, I hope everyone has their crayons. Let's color this transversal a different color then. Okay, I hope you can picture interior. What's inside my green lines and the angles have to be on opposite sides of that. So this one is kind of on top of the transversal, and this one looks to be on bottom of the transversal. Now, if you're having a hard time picturing this, I don't know if this is going to help or not because you can't see me, but if I draw a dot right in the middle of the transversal, and I picture this angle here breaking off and hinging down this way. Can you picture it twisting, twisting? So this point's going to come down whoop, right here, and they're going to match up. I know that some of you are really visual and can picture that. That's how I picture that they're the same. Okay, let's go to the next one. Please draw your parallel lines with a crayon, especially that arrow that's representing, that's the symbol that these two sides. Oh, I totally forgot a part over here. Let's go back. What are the angles that are congruent because they are parallel? Oh my goodness, because they're alternate interior angles. So angle I, which is this one here, is congruent to angle J. Make sure you use this less than symbol. In geometry, it means angle. Okay, going back to the third picture. I'm going to take my transversal color. Now, what about these other lines, P, Q, and RS? Aren't those also transversals? Yes, but if I go, I'm looking right here. This is this is on the left of the transversal. This is on the right. But because of the way this picture is drawn, that's not an angle that we're even talking about. So that's why I'm not going to use those ones. So I'm focusing on this yellow transversal. And the two angles that I'm seeing, it looks a lot like our first picture, are these ones. So the measure of angle. Now, can I call that angle R? Is it the only angle at vertex R? Nope. There's 3 angles at vertex R. So I can call it Q, R, P. And it is down here at P, but I gotta go S, P, R. All right, push pause on the video. Follow the directions, though, that we've been verbally saying. Trace your parallel lines with a crayon. Decide which of these 3 transversals actually has alternate interior angles, because 2 of these ones, those ones kind of on the outside, they only have interior angles. They have no exterior angles. And the whole point of alternate interior is they are on opposite sides of the transversal. Oh, I should put up here they are congruent. Okay, here's what I have so far. I use my blue to make my parallel lines. I emphasize that arrow. I use my yellow to make my transversal. Now, if you're focused now on this angle right here and thinking maybe it's alternate something, our angles have to be made by these 2 colors that we just drew in. So these ones outside here and here, these are not going to be a part of our angles because that's not the transversal we're focused on. We have to have a parallel line and a transversal creating the angle, a parallel line and a transversal. Okay, so now that we have the marked, push pause again and go and write the name, write your congruence statement. Oh my goodness, write the congruence statement. All right, here's what I came up with. Angle VUT is congruent to angle TWU. Now, did any of you have yours written a little bit different than that? Like, is it okay if you have angle TUV and angle UWT? Yes, as long as your vertex is in the middle. So the middle letters have to be U on the first one and W on the second one. And they could be in the opposite order. You could have TWU on your first line. You could have VUT on the second line. Okay, these pictures look a little bit different. They look like a bow tie. So take your crayon on all of these and make your parallel lines a little bit darker. Whatever your color is, I'll keep mine as blue. Wow, that is not even on it. Okay, now decide which parallel line is important. Oh, I said that wrong. Which transversal? So on these bow tie ones, we are going to have two sets of answers. I'm first going to focus on this transversal. And for my second set of alternate interior angles, I will focus on this transversal. So this one will be my yellow one, and this one will be my red one. So I'll do this one with you, and then I want you to try the next one on your own. I'm looking at angles that are alternate interior. So inside my blue lines, I'm focusing on the red. So I see the red transversal and the blue parallel line make these two. There's only one angle at both of these vertices, so I can do angle H is congruent to angle F. All right, now I'm ignoring that. My focus is now going to this yellow transversal and along with my parallel lines, so I can see that this angle is made by the yellow transversal and my blue parallel line, and this is its alternate interior. Since I only have one angle per vertex, I don't even know if you guys can see this yellow. Such a bad color. Oh, I just did that wrong. Sorry, F, you already had your turn. Angle I is congruent to angle E. Okay, try the next bow tie. It looks like an hourglass now. It's tipped up on its side. So draw two different colored transversals and write down that set of vertical angles. All right, I hope you had time to push pause before my answers popped up. I don't know if I paused long enough for that to happen. Okay, so I made my transversals red and teal, kind of. So the first ones I was looking for alternate interior angles, they're inside these blue parallel lines. And so the angle is made up by the red transversal and a blue parallel line. I'm seeing angle L and angle N. And then my next one, this second transversal that's turquoise, I'm looking for alternate interior angles that are made from a parallel line and a teal transversal. So angle M and angle O are my two. Okay, these last two pictures look a lot like the ones up above. So my only warning is this does not have an alternate exterior angle. It only has interior ones. Same thing with this. So we are not using those for our transversal. We want to focus on the one that cuts here, and right, it's got above and below, above and below. And then which ones, oh, it's kind of hard that I made these teal. So I really only want to have my parallel lines a color. I really wish I could draw a straight line. My parallel lines are one color. My transversal that I'm focusing on is a different color because the angles will be made up by those two colors. So I can see this is one angle that's made up by a parallel line and the transversal, and this is the other angle that's made up of the parallel line and a transversal. So see if you can write those congruent statements. There are 3 angles at vertex Z. There are 3 angles at vertex X. So you got to pick the right ones. So maybe push pause and write those in yourself. This one's hard for me. Now, I put a line through my Z's so they don't look like 2's. It's the only reason I do that. It's not to try to be fancy handwriting or to confuse anybody. Okay, please try this last one on your own, then come on back and see if our answers match. All right, here's what I ended up with. Once I focused on just the transversal and not those 2 other lines, I can see the alternate interior angles. So I just want to mention again, if you wrote ECF, or CED, or maybe you had these on opposite sides, it's hard for teachers to correct because there's a lot of good ways to write this. Those are all okay. The main thing I'm concerned about is when you write it, these angle names with 3 letters, the middle letter must be the vertex. So C has to be the middle alphabet letter. E has to be the middle alphabet letter. And I don't use, I don't know what I was trying to say. Okay, your homework. Let me fix this first. Your homework looks like this guy. I can't think of what color it is. Guess that doesn't matter. So the directions, it talks about congruent triangles using reflexive property and vertical angles. So from yesterday and today, we know the reflexive property. We've reviewed vertical angles. And then today we really focused on the alternate interior. Alternate interior angles are congruent. So as you look at this particular worksheet, it's two-sided, but they each take quite a bit of room. So we're going to start and we're going to look at number 1 and number 2. I hope those are good ones to do together. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy. Okay, so we've got this given. Looking at the picture, it says DC is congruent to. So my eyes are going here to DC. Look at a really fun color. DC is congruent to. How do I know what it's congruent to? I look at the dash mark, and here's its matching dash mark. So it's congruent to side A, B. I'm putting a hat on it. That was given to me. Okay, now I'm going to come down here. I'm looking at the alternate interior angles theorem. So let's find angle DCA. Do you see it? It's this one. And it's congruent to what angle? Because they're alternate interior angles. So keep doing what we did on this notes page. Get your crayons, draw your transversal, find the alternate interior angle. I see it. It's right here. I'm going to name it angle BAC. So make sure you draw on your picture that congruent statement with the markings. Okay, let's look at the next one. CA is congruent to blank because of the reflexive property of congruence. So dig into your brain from yesterday. What does the reflexive property mean? Well, it's kind of a silly one, but it means that it's exact same thing. So CA for this triangle is the same side as CA for this triangle. So I write it again. Put the hat on it. So because I know those things, I have a side, an angle, and a side. So I can conclude that triangle DCA, this whole triangle, is congruent to triangle. Now I got to be careful here. I'm going to start over here at B. From D to C, I went past the green line. So I'm going from B to A and ending at C. The order matters. Now my reason for this, again, is side, angle, side. I should have done a harder one with you, right? This one has a bunch of things filled in the blanks. So a lot of these are very similar. On the given, if you're like, I don't know what they gave me, look up at the picture. There's also a hint here that we're looking at some angles that are congruent. So look at the picture right now with me. Which angles are congruent? And it's given in the picture. And then it talks about another set of angles that's congruent. So think about our 3 properties. How would I know that another set of angles is congruent? And we talked about the vertical angles and alternate interior. I don't see vertical angles on that second one, so it's probably going to be alternate interior. Okay, I'm going to go. Are those the same? Oh, this must be a half sheet. Okay, so on these ones, again, we have 3 theorems we're looking for. Vertical angles. And they look like vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent. They're across from each other. We've got this reflexive property we can be using. And we've got alternate interior angles. So we've got some things to help us get started. This is always the given. So look up there. What did they tell us? Is something congruent? Is an angle congruent? Is a side congruent? Probably going to be sides because these are now talking about angles. And your bottom statements down here with your proofs are going to be side, 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 or side, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. And the ones you're not looking for is AAA or angle, side, side. These are the ones that we aren't supposed to use. They're not definitive.